Welcome, brothers! In today's video, we will be talking about the order in which each Primarch was discovered. In the first video, we talked about the first 11 sons that were found by the Emperor. The 12th Primarch to be discovered was Sanguinius. His path landed on Baal Secundus. Upon being reunited with the Revenant Legion, who were later renamed the Blood Angels, Sanguinius aspired his sons to become some of the best shock troops in the entire Imperium. The 9th Legion was rumored to be on the chopping block because of a genetic flaw that they had. It was labeled the Red Thirst. It made them some of the most unreliable Astartes. However, Sanguinius assisted them by overcoming their flaw and becoming some of the best Astartes. If it wasn't for that, I believe that the entire heresy would have unfolded completely differently. Ironically, Horus was aware of this, and he took the side of his brother. Sanguinius's books are some of the most interesting reads. He was always the most interesting characters of the books, even if they were not the best. Some people really enjoyed the end and the death, some hated them. I really enjoyed reading the final chapters of the Siege of Terra. Chris Wright did a good job portraying Sanguinius into the Great Angel. Lionel Johnson was the 13th Primarch to be found. He landed on Caliban, which was a death world infested with war beasts. His planet was right next to Medusa. Paris Manus was one of the first Primarchs to be discovered. Shortly after, it was Fulgrim, which was the complete opposite. It was in Chemos. I wonder why the Emperor or the Star Hunters at the time did not discover his world. Regardless, he reunited with the Dark Angels, which was the First Legion. They became some of the most instrumental Astartes in the entire Great Crusade. They saved the Imperium during the Rangdan genocides. Unfortunately, their books were some of the worst of the entire franchise. Descent of Angels was a complete slog. Angels of Caliban was an interesting read. There was a redeeming part in it. I really enjoyed the clash between Conrad Kurz of the Night Lords and Lionel Johnson of the Dark Angels. The Unremembered Empire was not a book dedicated to Lionel Johnson, but he played an important role during the Imperium Secundus. So this is why you find it on this part. Perturabo, Primarch of the 4th Legion, landed on Olympia. He is an interesting character because his legion was done dirty. The Iron Warriors were probably some of the most efficient space marines in the entire Legiones Astartes. If the Emperor gave him just a little bit more attention, if he was shown a sliver of love from the Emperor, he would have stood loyal. You learn this on Perturabo, the Hammer of Olympia. You find it on Slaves to Darkness because he realized, after seeing what his brothers had become, that the entire events that unfolded on the Siege of Terra were pointless. The Iron Warriors even left the Siege of Terra towards the end of it because they no longer agreed with the vision of Horus. My favorite book related to Perturabo was Angel Exterminatus. He shared the showcase with Fulgrim. There was an interesting interaction between both of them. I will not spoil too much on it, but I would highly recommend you to read it. It was a great book. It was a great read. Perturabo was followed by Mortarion, Primarch of the 14th Legion. He was the 15th Primarch to be found. Prior to that, his Legiones Astartes were called the Dusk Raiders. He landed on Barbarus, which is at the edge of the Imperial space. It was relatively close to Deliverance. His legion was renamed the Death Guard. They became experts of attrition warfare and toxic environments. His books were interesting reads. I absolutely loved Vengeful Spirit, which is among the best books in the entire series, almost as good as Horus Rising and Fulgrim. Some people find it even better. The Flight of the Eisenstein was was an amazing book. I really love Natalia O'Garo. The Buried Dagger, I felt bad for the events in it. Anyways, Mortarion was also done dirty. If he was shown a little bit more love by the Emperor, he would not have been one of the first Primarchs to join the traitors during the Civil War. Right after the Dusk Raiders found their Primarch, the Star Hunters discovered Jagadai Khan, who renamed them into the White Scars. He landed on Shogoris, so you probably have noticed by now that there's a lot of Primarch homeworlds at the center of the galaxy. We see Chemos, Shogoris, Olympia, we see Baal. It's all that central circle of the Imperium. There's a lot of important worlds that are located in it, specifically hive worlds. I wonder why the Emperor did not find all the Primarchs in there one after another. Regardless, he reforged his legion to be some of the best scouts and vanguard in the entire Imperium. His books are amazing. I absolutely loved Jagatai Khan, Warhawk of Shogoris. You might judge me for this next sentence, but I found that read almost as interesting as Horus Rising. I know the book is not as good, but I really loved the interaction between Jagatai and Mortarion when he broke the siege, when he took the Lion's Gate to Earth Spaceport. The Lost and the Damned was also an amazing book. However, if you were to rank the overall books associated to him, you would put them on the mid tier. It's just that he's one of my personal favorite characters. Lorgar Aurelian, Erebus, Corferon, I know that you guys love them. Landed on Colchis. Capital of Colchis was Monarchia. Everybody knows what happened to Monarchia. Unfortunately, the Ultramarines were tasked with raising the city, which turned Lorgar Aurelian into the first heretic, the first Primarch to join the Chaos Gods. Prior to his reunion with his sons, the 12th Legion was labeled as the Imperial Heralds. The best book on Lorgar Aurelian, the first heretic, is definitely an interesting read. I think that it was one of the best books in the entire Heresy. The Vengeful Spirit, the first heretic, Fulgrim, and Horus Rising, definitely at the top of the pile. There's a few of them. Betrayer was also an interesting read because of the interactions he had with Angron, but we will talk about it later. Conrad Kurz was the 18th Legion to be found. He was Primarch of the 8th Legion. The Night Lords found their Primarch on Nostramo, which was at the other opposite end. So if Barber was at the southwest, the Night Lords had their Primarch on the northeast. Nostramo is completely destroyed. Conrad Kurz, upon realizing what happened on his world, he just simply decided to nuke it from orbit. His books are interesting. I really loved Conrad Kurz, The Night Hunter, his book written by Guy Haley. Guy Haley is a great author, not as good as Dan Abnett. That's my personal opinion. You can judge me on it. But I wish it would have been written slightly differently. Prince of Crows was better in my opinion. The Dark King also gave us some insight on him. Angron, Primarch of the Warhounds, landed on Luceria. There's no traces of Luceria left. We do not know what happened to it. The entire population of the planet was consumed for his ascension into demonhood. There's no data that will pinpoint its location. The only thing that we know is that it was close to the 500 worlds near Ultramar. His books are interesting. He shares the showcase on Slave to Darkness, and with Betrayer, I didn't really like Slave of Nuceria. The Emperor should have approached Angron differently. when he discovered Angron on Nuceria, he was making a last stand with all his brother gladiators against the High Riders, who were the slaver soldiers. The Emperor should have intervened personally to save him and his soldiers. It would have avoided the Imperium a lot of trouble during the Civil War, trust me on that. Corvus Corax, Primarch of the 19th Legion, the Raven Guard, was found on Lycaeus, which was later renamed Deliverance. They are specialists into stealth warfare, maybe not at the same extent as the Alpha Legion. We will talk about the Alpha Legion just after that, because yes, there were 21 Primarchs to be found. I will explain it later. We're not there yet. His book, Deliverance Lost, or Corax, Lord of Shadows. Lord of Shadows was his main book, but I prefer Deliverance Lost. Soulforge, my personal opinion, was not as good. But his character is quite interesting because he was almost the other half of Conrad Kurz. Both brothers did not get along, and his find should have been a red flag for the Emperor. They should have seen what was going on with Conrad Kurz. Conrad Kurz would have been a completely different character if the Emperor intervened and assisted him with his fall to madness. The final Primarch to be found is Omegon. He was discovered by Alpharius. We do not know the homeworld of Omegon. Everything that we know is that he was enslaved by the Slot, who used them as one of their agents because they were interested in his character. When Alpharius met Omegon on Bar Savor, they swapped places. Omegon joined the Alpha Legion, and Alpharius acted independently. This came at an interesting point in the Great Crusade because the Imperium was on the back foot in the third ranked and Xenocides. Lionel Johnson, Primarch of the First, was tasked with the command of the Imperial forces in that war. 2 Primarchs were lost. The second Primarch of the Second Legion and the Primarch of the 11th Legion. We do not know their ultimate fate, but we know that they are no longer part of the setting. Alpharius used the excuse of his discovery by Horus to bring the Ghost Legion out of the shadows. He labeled it the Alpha Legion, and they assisted Lionel Johnson in his ultimate victory against the Rangda. Some people were asking why Lionel Johnson, despite his incredible achievements toward the end of the Crusade, was not the War Master. It's because part of his achievements can be credited to the intervention of Alpharius. I have taken all my information from the books written by Dan Abnett and Mike Brooks, Alpharius, head of the Hydra, Legion. Even John French wrote an interesting book, Praetorian of Dorn, and Gaftorb, Deliverance Lost. If you notice the pattern with every other book, normally a dedicated author is assigned to a Primarch story arc, but Alpharius is the only Primarch that had several authors assigned to his book. This is why sometimes the writing is all over the place. If you have any comments, if you have a different opinion, if you disagree with me, put it into the comments below. It will be more than a pleasure for me to answer you. I hope that this Primarch continuity answers some of your questions. Bastor tuning out.